Welcome to Nurse Burnout Solutions, the show that empowers you to beat stress, reclaim your energy, and discover lasting fulfillment in your nursing career. I'm your host, Betty McLean. I'm a nurse with over 20 years of experience, and I'm also a certified life and certified burnout coach. I'm here to share expert insights with you, a lot of practical tools, and some inspiring stories. So join me as we navigate the challenges of a career in healthcare, and I help you find renewed purpose and resiliency, one episode at a time. Hi, friends. Welcome back to the podcast. Today, we're going to continue from where we started last week, talking about the symptoms of burnout. Last week, we talked about exhaustion. Today, we're going to talk about mentally distancing yourself from work. So, as a nurse, this can be very subtle, but if you have ever noticed yourself feeling like you're just going through the motions at your job, feeling robotic, and maybe not even noticing, but if you think about it right now as you're listening, your compassion seems to be gone. You're not emotionally connecting with your patients, with your coworkers, with the work of being a nurse. This episode is for you, okay? So let's again be clear about what I'm talking about when I'm saying are mentally distancing yourself from work. This can show up for nurses in you being physically present, but emotionally checked out. Your patient care starts to feel mechanical and you're just ticking boxes. This is often the result of overwork and a non-supportive work environment. But it also has to do with our internal world and our internal boundaries. The other way that mentally distancing yourself from work can show up is just feeling numb in situations that used to stir up compassion and care, but you're just emotionally numb. Some nurses describe it as like watching yourself at work, but you're not really there. You might even notice that you're avoiding conversations with coworkers and patients because it feels just too overwhelming or it feels draining, like you just don't have the emotional energy. This is your brain's way, this distancing, this is your brain's way of protecting itself when you are in overwhelm and headed into or already in burnout. It pulls back emotionally in order to conserve energy. Our brains are fantastic at survival. And when our job is demanding too much of us and we don't have the right boundaries in place, the brain uses this coping mechanism of distancing in order to protect itself. The problem is it can lead to disconnection and real severe burnout, where it starts to lead us into that realm of our physical body not being supported. So, if you are noticing this emotional distance, your brain trying to protect itself, we're going to talk about the first step in maybe starting to correct that. When you're at a point where you're emotionally distancing, mentally pulling back from work, there is a lot of work, a lot of healing that needs to happen. That can be boundary work, that can be self-empowerment work. There's probably some trauma work that needs to be done. But the very first thing that you can do right now, today, okay? If you're driving, maybe you can't do this, but any other time, I'm going to give you an example. You can do this in your break room. You can do this at home before you go to bed, just a couple of minutes. It's a journaling prompt. So what I want you to do is take a piece of paper and you're going to ask yourself, why did I become a nurse? And what matters most to me now? And on this piece of paper, I recommend you set a timer. Don't allow yourself to journal for, I mean, if you're someone who likes to write and you have time and you want to journal for 30 minutes, go for it. But I would just set a timer and say 4 minutes. Why did I become a nurse? And what do I value most right now? What matters most to me right now? And then you're going to look at what what were those things that led me to this career in the first place? Was it wanting to help people? Was it wanting the freedom and the paycheck? Was it wanting to be in an industry that's fast paced and interesting and the human body is bizarre and complex and I want to be a part of healing that, right? Whatever your reason was. But then also, what are my values right now? And you're just going to journal it out, right? Don't think you can overthink, but I want those thoughts to come out onto the paper, right? Because once we get it out of our brain and onto paper, we can then look at it and help our brain come out of the like fear and I need to conserve energy, I need to keep myself safe and start to look at the bigger picture. Maybe you came to nursing very much from a place of compassion and calling, and I want to make a difference in people's lives, right? That is so important to connect back to your why for healing from burnout. If you understand why you're there each day, you automatically give yourself a boost of personal empowerment. When you know, yeah, I'm going to this job, I choose to go to this job because it aligns with who I want to be in the world, that is literally supporting your own power. That is the definition of empowerment, right? I'm choosing to do this because it aligns with who I am and my values. The other thing that this journaling prompt helps with is why did I get into nursing and what do I value most right now? Maybe your values have shifted. Maybe you got into nursing when you were 22 years old, right? And now you're 42 years old and your values have probably changed, right? And that's beautiful. Humans are meant to change. We are not meant to stay the same from the time we're an adult at 18 to the time we die, right? We are meant to evolve and change and grow, and our values change, our priorities change, right? Maybe your value is family, but that looks different at 22 than it does at 42, doesn't it? So journal out why did I get into nursing and what matters most to me right now and see where those line up and see if there are some places where they don't line up anymore. A lot of people want to leave nursing. They think, I'm burnt out. I can't keep doing this anymore. That was my experience. I had worked in the hospital on med surg and acute care floors for 17 years and loved it. But with my burnout, I had a couple of triggering trauma events, and that led to needing to distance myself. It was a coping mechanism, right? I didn't get the professional support that I probably should have had in order to process that trauma so that it did not affect me the way it did. But as as I distanced, I thought, I can't do this anymore. I can't be a nurse anymore. I'm not emotionally connected to my patients. Everything's too overwhelming. And so I chose to leave bedside. Well, I'm still doing bedside nursing, but I left the hospital setting, even though I loved it. I loved the hospital setting. Now I do in-home care, and I have found a way to align in-home care with my values. So it works for me. But that's been very conscious work. It has been me consciously saying, this work is important and it can align with what I value right now, right? What's important in my life as a whole human, not just as a nurse, right? But as a spouse and as a friend and all of the things that make up me. I know what my values are, so I've been able to align my work with who I am. And that's what this little journal prompt is for. It's not something that's going to just fix your burnout just like that. Oh, look, I wrote down my values and so now I feel empowered and now everything's fine. I'm connecting emotionally with work. And I mean, if you're early in the stages of burnout, this might be what you need. You just need to journal more frequently and really connect with yourself and your sense of purpose. And that may be enough to heal your burnout. For a lot of nurses, it's not enough. So it's the start of your healing from burnout journey. If you are experiencing dread every shift, you sit in the parking lot and you just are pit of your stomach dread. You are counting down the minutes until you can clock out. If you just feel like, I don't care anymore, I don't care about my patients, I don't care about my coworkers, maybe even nursing itself, right? That's burnout. That's more than just a rough week. That is depersonalization and a pulling back. It does not mean you are a bad person. Let's say that again, like listen to that. Just because you don't feel like you care anymore does not mean you are a bad nurse. It does not mean you are a bad person. That is your brain's survival mechanism kicking in. It is trying to keep you safe. And that's okay. That's a beautiful thing. That's why humans have made it as long as we have, because our brains are very good at keeping us emotionally safe. The problem is, if it is left unaddressed, it will turn into bitterness, it will turn into guilt, and you will get to a point where you will need to walk away, or you will just become that burnt out, horrible nurse who people can't stand to be around and who can't stand to be around themselves, right? This one journaling exercise of looking at your value, why did you get into nursing and what do you value now? That won't pull you out of the spiral, but it can be the catalyst to start you on the deeper work of recovery. And that work will involve rewiring some thought patterns, learning to regulate your nervous system, healing from trauma, building better support structures around yourself so that you are not alone going through this. And there's a lot of ways you can go about your healing journey. If that is something that you know you need, I would love for you to schedule a free consultation with me. I might be the perfect person to help you on that road to recovery. But for some people, I'm going to refer you to a licensed therapist. For some people, you may not feel like my style of coaching is what you need yet, and so you're going to keep looking. But a consultation call is 30 minutes to an hour, and it can be on the phone or it can be on Zoom, and it's just us looking at where are your biggest symptoms right now? Where are the areas where you are experiencing a lot of pain and pressure and issues? And then what are some steps that you can take to start to recover from that? So if that's of interest to you, you can go to my website, bettymclean.com. That's Betty, Betty, McLean, MCLEAN.com. Schedule a consultation, and we'll just talk about this idea that work is hard and how do I start my recovery to a place where I love my work again. That is possible for you. So until next time, take excellent care of yourself, and I will talk to you next week. Thanks for listening today to Nurse Burnout Solutions. Remember, I really believe that all stress is manageable and burnout is not inevitable. If you are struggling with stress or in burnout, I can help. Check out the show notes for ways that we can connect and get you the support that you deserve.